In many of my last several videos, I've been talking about how women can live without men because we regenerate the life force energy that runs the world. We are the creator. The feminine, the divine feminine, is the creator. That's why the divine feminine has been silenced and removed from our canon of scripture, and her power has been completely stripped in religious institutions, because she is the creator, she is the power. When women recognize this and stand on business, the world changes. When we realize that they need us, actually, we're fine without them. We can live without them, and we can thrive without them. They cannot thrive without us. They cannot live without us, the masculine. So they created lies around this idea that we needed them, that we needed to be chosen in order to have safety, worth, and value. They created that lie so that they could have our energy at all times and pillage it and hoard it and keep it contained within the home. So when you recognize that you actually have the power, everything shifts, because now they have to be deserving of your power. They have to provide safety, consistency. They have to allow you to rest. They have to do the most to be deserving of it. And they don't want that. They want it for free, which is why all the lies have been created. So in a video that I posted, I talked about going on a 14-day fast for men. No, I think I said a 4-week fast. If you can only do 14 days, that's going to be just as mind-blowing, and you're going to have a whole ass epiphany from 14 days. But if you really want to do this well, I'm going to say you need to do 4 weeks. I went 6 months with no men in my life. I stopped dating. I went home and I created. I went on a fast from men for 6 months. And in doing so, I'm going to talk about what I garnered, okay? For those of you that are scared to do this because you've never been alone, it's okay. I'm not going to call you a pick-me here, because that's the messaging that has been given to all of us from the patriarchy, that we must have a man and a man must choose us in order to have worth and value, okay? So I understand if you've been brainwashed and in this predicament and you're unsure as to how you're even going to survive 4 weeks without a man. I'm going to tell you what happened to me when I went 4 weeks without a man. Now, I'm going to be completely transparent. This was the first time in like 45 years of my whole ass life that I've ever gone without male attention. So even if I didn't have a boyfriend, I had male attention around me. I had a husband, or, you know, when that marriage fell apart, I had male attention, and then I had a dusty boyfriend. It's like I couldn't live without male attention either, masculine attention. So I'm going to say right now, this was the first time for me, and it was scary. The first couple weeks, you almost go through like a withdrawal, because you've never been without it before, and you have to sit with yourself. And what you'll notice is you start to get really antsy. You start to get really antsy, and your thoughts start to like completely overreact, okay? You start having thoughts that come up, and these thoughts are really, really judgmental from your inner self. These thoughts and these questions that start coming up are really mean. The thoughts that I had at this time were, am I just an old troll? Like, is something wrong with me? Am I ever going to be desirable to anybody? Am I going to be alone forever? Am I going to have to be alone forever? These were thoughts that came up very readily during the first 2 weeks. And I found myself scrolling. I found myself doom scrolling. I found myself like engaging in like these habitual behaviors because I wanted to quiet these thoughts, because they were really, really uncomfortable and they were scary, to be honest. And I didn't know how to sit with myself. So I started like watching TV. I started like doom scrolling. I was doing anything I could to like quiet the thoughts and distract myself. But then as I moved through that like white knuckling period, what I started to do is face the thoughts head on. And I started to look at them, and all of a sudden I could see them for what they were. And it was like the emperor with no clothes. I saw that all they were just limiting beliefs that like had been given to me by like my religion and, you know, the patriarchy around me. And I started to realize like they weren't true. And even if I was alone, like I asked myself, what if I'm alone forever? I was like, you know, it's not ideal. I would love to have a partner, but I have a feeling that I'll have a lot of friends around me my whole life. I have a feeling that I'll have like hobbies and interests and a garden, and I'm going to be okay even if I'm alone. So I started to like walk myself off of the ledge and realize that like a lot of these fears that I had had my whole life about being alone and not being chosen by a man were just, they didn't have any merit. They were baseless. And here I was running from them and like allowing them to dictate my life, when in reality, they were just baseless thoughts that once I really thought them through, they didn't hold any weight. I wasn't really that scared of like the worst case scenario. And once that happened, I like calmed down, and then I could sit with myself, and I was like, okay, well, it's just going to be us. You know, I'm talking to myself like a lunatic, but I'm like, it's just going to be us here, sis. So what do we actually want to do for the next, like, if it's going to be forever, 40 years? What do we want to do in this moment right now? Because before it was all about pandering to men and making myself palatable and going out and getting all dressed up so I could get that male attention. I could get that validation. But now I was like, well, I don't need that anymore. I don't really want that anymore. So what do I want to do in this moment? I want to like bake a cake. So one time over 4th of July weekend, I was all alone because all my friends were with their dusty boyfriends, and I didn't have any male attention, and I was a single woman, and I was all by myself. So I was like, I'm going to make a huge 4th of July cake. So I did. I made a like 3-tier 4th of July cookie dough cake. It took me like 3 days. It was so much fun. It was joyous. Then I was like, ooh, there's this like book I've been wanting to read. I'm going to download that on my Kindle. And I laid around on a Friday night eating ramen, that, because again, this is what I wanted to eat, or making myself a charcuterie board, like full chick food moment. I'm going to have a charcuterie board and I'm going to read a book that I've always wanted to read, or I'm going to crash out and watch like some really scary episodes of Dateline. And then I'm going to, you know, have a little me time right before bed. That was another thing that's really key and important. I'm going to take care of myself before bed. So TMI, I'll just leave it at that. But I started to get really clear on like, what do I want? Because for so long, my whole life, I've been living for everyone else. What do I want to do? And as I started to pour into myself, okay, this was the most magical part. And I'm going to stop doing my makeup for a minute so I can get into it with you. Once I quieted all the negative voices, once I started to do what I wanted to do, once I started to heal myself from like that messaging that was so limiting and scary, I started to like have this influx of ideas. I don't know who was giving them to me. It was source energy. It was God. It was whatever you want to call it. But this is the secret sauce of divine feminine energy. We are the creators. So when I started to get real comfortable with myself, all of a sudden, I'm going to say this was like 2 weeks in. So I'm going to again encourage you, please do this for 4 weeks, because you got to get through the 2 weeks of like white knuckling to get to the magic on the other side, which is the last half of the month. The last 2 weeks of your 4-week male diet, you're cleansing yourself of the masculine and you're just going inward, was this influx of creative ideas. Creative things I wanted to make with my hands, creative things I wanted to do with my talents. I've always been a writer. I've never written a book. I've always wanted to write a book. I started writing. I started creating videos on this app. I started using my voice, and all of a sudden I realized I actually have a voice that women want to hear. I have a voice that people want to hear. All this time I've been playing small and staying quiet to be chosen. Actually, my voice and my opinions are my birthright. They are actually why I've been put on this earth. They are my gift. I'm not going to quiet them anymore. I'm going to speak out loud. I started making videos that started going viral. I started making money on this app just for speaking my mind. It was magic. I had so many freaking ideas on inventions I wanted to make, books I wanted to write, videos I wanted to create, jewelry lines I wanted to manufacture. I'm still working on them to this day. And honestly, they were like, the universe, God was like, once you got all that masculine obsession out of the way, I can now work through you and provide you and give you all these divinations, ideas, and like mind-blowing creative epiphanies. This is what happens when you stop trying to be chosen, pour into yourself, and allow source to work through you. Now, all of a sudden, you, my friend, you, my beloved, are the creator. You are the divine feminine creator. You have it all in you. The secret sauce is within you. You just got to get out of your own way, meaning stop waiting to be chosen by them and give it